Hello, everyone. Good to see everybody. My name is Melissa. I founded a company called Raw Materials, which is an upcycled high fashion brand and product development company made entirely out of textile waste. So all of our items are made from salvaged fabrics, and we are hoping to use this industry, lay the groundwork for the upcycled industry to create jobs for nonprofits, for fundraising, for job opportunities for trafficking survivors, the homeless, veterans, anybody that needs some sort of social enterprise to keep their nonprofits going. So basically, we make cool things out of old clothes for good causes. That's the short version of it. Because of this, like Lee was talking about, there's 25 billion tons of textile waste ending up in the landfills due to the fast fashion industry currently. Some people say it's as low as 14 billion, but that's still thousands and thousands of pounds of clothes that are not even being addressed right now because of plastic and food waste. I mean, it's kind of like the bottom rung of the recyclables. People are not aware of it and don't even know how to begin to address it because of the other waste that we have in this country. The fashion industry is second only to the oil industry in negative impact on our planet, and that's from True Cost movie. Recently, the fashion industry has pushed back on that and said that they're not the second, that they're maybe the third or the fourth or the fifth, but still pretty bad. And when you weigh in the exploitation of workers, the pollutants that are put in our water, and the water conservation, the water it's needed to make our clothing, I think that they're pretty up there as far as negative impact, maybe even equal to the oil industry. Certain brands are trying to please consumers because everybody is now saying, who makes my clothes? The fashion revolution, True Cost has brought a lot of this to light, so they're making an attempt. Burberry recently, instead of putting their stuff in the landfill, set fire to $7 million worth of their merchandise. And they burned it. They set fire to it. So the public outcry was a nightmare, a public relations nightmare, and they've been trying to recover ever since. Forever 21 and H&M, which are the biggest offenders, their clothes are so cheap, the product is so cheap that it can't even be used in thrift shops because nobody wants to buy it. It gets worn very quickly. There's a lot of solutions out there. Everybody's trying to figure out what to do. We have fear tactics. We have the same old environmental, things that are creeping up on us. It doesn't seem to be moving anybody in the right directions. It doesn't seem to be stopping anybody from, buying as much as they want. We ship some over to overseas, and that ruins other economies in other countries because it takes up jobs from local workers. And then there's thrift shops that are getting overburdened by the tidying up craze, which is great. Everybody's bringing their clothes and thanking them for their service and giving them away. But thrift shops are now overburdened with all that excess clothing. Some of it isn't very good. I volunteered at a thrift shop, and sometimes things that come in aren't very nice and can't be resold. So it's not really helping them. And thrift shops do incur costs to get rid of. They have dumping fees themselves, so you're actually causing them to have to pay more money. Okay, so Raw Materials does this. We do everything from high-end private collections to currently we're trying to come up with outfits that are easy to make and have a high dollar markup so that people can make them very easily in their home. It can be a side hustle, it can be for a single mom, it can be for a program for a nonprofit. So we do everything from the extreme, we've shown in museums, museum pieces and ball gowns and have things in different places, all the way to we are starting an online store where we're trying to sell to the basic consumer. We are not this. Pants and plants is hilarious, but we try not to do anything craftsy or, not that there's anything wrong with that. It's all very creative, but we're trying to elevate the waste to a level where it's a commodity and a resource and an actual viable textile alternative for the future. So we're really careful about what we design. We try to come up with new designs. There's something very creative. We try to follow closely to what we see in magazines, and we've even come up with a few of our very own unique designs. Okay, I guess you all know the difference between downcycling, recycling, and upcycling. Downcycling currently would be if clothes were cut into rags. Recycling would be if it was given to a thrift store because it's clothes being sold as clothes. And then raw materials is really trying to elevate the whole textile waste industry. Okay, so it's either an overwhelming tsunami of all of this textiles, or it could be the ride of our lives. And I think that there is a complete and separate upcycled fashion industry within the textile waste that will provide jobs, will come up with new exciting creations, lends itself to collaborations with every major fashion brand is going to have some sort of upcycling program for the future. And it would be great if like two major brands would take their overstock and mix it all up and come up with like a hybrid fashion line. League already covered some of the different places that have lines that are renewable. Most places will take overstock and cut new fashions like Reformation. Eileen Fisher takes their damaged and returned goods and they fix them and wash them and resell them. And they're doing really well with all this. Respun, I think, is T-shirts that are taken apart and respun into new T-shirts. So it was the first time I launched Raw Materials over 12 years ago. We did everything from fashion shoots, fashion shows. We were in magazines. We were on TV. And it was really, really popular, but nobody cared anything about the recycling. I tried my hardest to tell everybody how great this was for the environment, and they only cared about that it was unique, and everybody asked where they got it, and they stood out wherever they went. So these are some of the other fashion shows. We did the museum. We did a lot downtown. So now we're trying to bridge the gap with this individual high-end line to things that can be produced very easily. And we're trying out a design kit where we would send you a kit, you would put your item in the bag, fill out a style story, and then send it back and we would create something for you. So we're testing that out right now, and eventually we'd like to see it digital where you pull up an app, you have a piece of clothes, you want to recycle, you just look at the list and see what you can make out of it and send it to us and we'll remake it for you. It's also great for engagement marketing. We've done fraying events where we've taught people how to fray their jeans. And I was just telling some people tonight that when people got together and started fraying their jeans, it was like a quilting bee, and the multi-generations and the different people, we started to talk to each other. I mean, we're from all different walks of life. There was an older generation, a younger generation, different beliefs, but while we were sitting around doing something with our hands, it created this atmosphere where we talked. We had wine, we talked, and we just worked on our jeans for a couple hours, and it was a great sense of community. So I feel like it's so much more than your fashion. It can do so much more. We can take shirts that are left over from an event and turn them into, something that you'll get stopped out in the crowd, and it'll promote your brand even better than just a regular T-shirt. Okay, so here's a little history of how I got here. It wasn't your typical roller coaster. It was definitely crash, straight to the top, and then crash down. I launched Raw Materials about 12 years ago. I was a runner-up for the first Project Runway. And then 2008 hit, the economic downturn, went through a divorce and lost my business and my home, like very quickly within a short period of time. But even then, watching my kids and how they were during that, I knew I wanted to help people. And I came across a book just that I had wrote in a couple of years while I was going through this. And my mission statement was to solve the world's problems with the world's problems. And I didn't know what that meant at the time, but it sounded cool and it gave me a little bit of hope. My first goal was to get a car. But after that climb, I knew I wanted to do something to impact people on a larger scale with a great idea. You know, I wanted to come up with some big solution. And I did. And I started working for a corporation. I went back to graphic design. And I came up with an idea for the virtual food drive. And it shot straight to the top, all the way to the CEO. And then straight down again when they told me never to speak of it again because it got caught up in red tape, as most ideas do in large corporations. Then I had another idea about volunteering, and it was a system to get more people involved in volunteering. And that also went to the number 2 person in this billion-dollar company. And again, it crashed. It just didn't make it through the ranks of all 6 layers of management. It just couldn't make it through. And then I thought, you know, I tried. I had this, through faith, I had this voice and telling me that I wanted to help people. And I'm like, you know what? That's it. I give up. I'm happy being a wife and mother. I met my husband during this time, and I was just happy doing what I was doing. But I had other plans. God had other plans for me, and actually began to lose my sight from the stress of not doing what I was supposed to be doing. So the message is just to, you know, if you have a little voice that's telling you that you need to do something, it may not be exactly what you want to do. I would be perfectly happy just being a wife and a mother and just volunteering once in a while. I think that voice just gets louder and louder the more you deny it. And I think that you can act on that without being worried about changing your life, because it's changed my life in such a great impact. I've met great people. I've got to work with amazing people. So after my corporate life, my husband came to me with a calendar and said, pick your end date as a birthday present. And for the last couple years, I've been working on this raw materials reboot full time. And during that time, I gained some superpowers. The superpower of obedience, which isn't one of the more popular ones. And I learned that Wile E. Coyote is my spirit animal. Because no matter how crazy the idea is, I don't seem to be afraid to do it. And I don't seem to be able to fail miserably in front of everybody. So by doing all this, our end game is to work with charities. We work with trafficking survivors, in Fort Lauderdale. I've got to meet a lot of the ladies. I want to create jobs that they can have dignified wage, so they can earn enough money to get back on their feet. And for the homeless, and it works for so many groups of people. A lot of them have records. A lot of people getting back on their feet from nonprofits have records, so they can't get a job in the regular places. With this is something that they can work with their hands. They can create their own job. And with the fraying of jeans, if we can get some fraying stations and get people interested in that, a woman can work anywhere in the world with a tweezer and an emery board. They're the only tools she would need to set up a business and make money for her children. So that's kind of what we hope to do by building this brand and building this business. Is we eventually want to get to that. I want to help that mom. I want to help those kids. So thank you for that. That's my picture. Thanks. Thank you. Woo.